3 words that cost me a job offer. That's all it took. That's all it took. No, wait, that's 4 words. But 3 words that I said that cost me a job offer in an interview that I thought that I was perfect for. My English was flawless, my qualifications exceeded their requirements, and the interview went brilliantly. Well, or so I thought. 2 days later, a rejection email. You know that standard email that we all get. Thank you for your time. Unfortunately, we are moving forward with another candidate. It sucks and it hurts to get that type of rejection email. So I was quite confused and a little bit frustrated as well, because I replayed that interview in my head about 100 times to try and figure out what exactly went wrong. And it wasn't until around 6 months after that interview that an Irish colleague told me exactly what I had said that killed my chances completely. And when she explained it, I realized something immediately, that I'd been making the same mistake in professional conversations for many years, in emails, in meetings, and even in negotiations. So in this video, I'm going to break down what exactly I said and alternatives that you can use to stop and not make the same mistake that I made. But the thing is, you're probably making that mistake right about now. I'm Dino, I'm your business English teacher, and today I'm going to show you this invisible mistake that's costing you a lot of credibility and might even challenge your reputation. And you probably have no idea it's even happening. But just before we get into today's video, I had a question from a student the other day, and they asked me, how exactly can I improve my English? And I always like to give some tips that I've told my students for many, many years that they have found so useful, practical, and helpful. One of the things that I love to share with my students, which is both reading a book and also listening to that book at the same time. If you have a book that you really like and you're reading it, I would suggest pairing that reading with the listening, with the ebook. So what you're actually doing is you are listening to the audio of the ebook while reading the book at the same time. This connects and sends off little neurons and messages in our brain that deeply ingrains the information learning into our brains. That would be much, much better than just standard reading alone. So that's a massive tip that a lot of my students have found extremely helpful, that I just want to share it with you. So remember, the next time you are reading, if you can find the ebook to that book, make sure you pair it with your reading practice. Give it a try and let me know how it goes for you. It's worked for so many of my students, so it may just work for you as well. All right, let's get into the video now. So the story starts about 4 years ago, and I was interviewing at a company here in Taiwan. And it was the final round of interviews, just myself and the director of the company. The interview was going really well. We talked about strategies, some goals and KPIs that we wanted to achieve, or he wanted the company to achieve going forward. And I felt pretty confident because I did have a lot of experience in that area from previous jobs. And I also had more qualifications than what the job posting actually required. So I did feel quite confident about this. And then came the question that at the time I didn't know it, but it would end everything. He said this role requires managing a team of about 15 teachers across multiple campuses. So I'd like you to coordinate schedules, daily plans, KPIs for those teachers, also teacher training, and making quick decisions when problems arise. Would you be able to handle and be comfortable with that level of responsibility? So I smiled, I felt confident, and I said, I will try. I will try. In fact, I said, I will try to manage that effectively. And then I saw her writing something down, and the whole energy of the interview shifted. And the interview wrapped up quickly after that. 2 days later, I did get that rejection email that said, we've decided to move forward with another candidate, but thank you so much for your time. And we wish you the best in your job search. And I was devastated. I was also confused because I thought that I was a great candidate for that position. What had I done wrong? 6 months later, I was having coffee with an Irish colleague and someone who had worked in international recruitment for many years. He has his own company, helping people find jobs and also headhunting for big organizations. So I did, and also still do, trust a lot of what he says related to the recruitment industry. So I told him the story. And then as soon as I finished the story, he put his coffee down and he said, you said you'd try? Is that what you said? Did you actually just say, I will try to do that effectively? And I said, yeah. I would try my best. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And immediately he closed his eyes and he said, that's exactly why you didn't get the position. Now, here's what my colleague taught me. And this is also going to change how you think about English forever, particularly in business settings or more formal or professional settings. When a native English speaker, particularly in a business or professional or formal setting, asks, can you do this? Or could you do this? And you reply with, I will try. You just told them that you can't do it. You cannot do it. Let that sink in. Now, I know what you might be thinking, because if we actually say, I will try, grammatically it is correct, and there's nothing wrong with saying that from a grammar point of view. Native speakers say try all the time, right? Yes, you would be correct in thinking that, but context is everything. Let me now explain what I will try actually communicates in Western business culture. So again, in a lot of my videos, I love to share about English tips, but also some culture tips as well to help you break down those cross-cultural communication barriers. So I will try means things like, I'm not confident in doing this task, or I'm already preparing for an excuse if and when I fail. Or even, this is beyond my current abilities, or I need permission to potentially let you down in the future. And lastly, I see this as a stretch and not a capability. So when you say I will try in a job interview, you're literally telling the hiring manager, I'm not ready for this role and I don't feel confident. So let's be a little bit more filtered or specific in this context. Let's take an Irish business culture perspective for a moment. Someone asks you to do something probably impossible, or you're being polite but you expect to fail, or even you're a junior being asked to do a senior's job. And when the director asked me, can you handle that level of responsibility? What he needed to hear was, yes, I can handle that, or absolutely, I'm confident I can handle that responsibility as I have done so in the past. So what you want to do is really just show that you have that experience giving examples from past positions or companies. However, what he heard at the time was, I'm not qualified for this position, I'll give it a shot and hopefully things will work out for the best. Doesn't really sound that confident, right? So I talked myself out of a job that I was perfect for, because I was trying to sound humble and probably too polite as well. But here's the thing that really bothers me about this. I really started paying attention to my own English after that conversation and after that lesson learned. And I realized that I was saying try constantly. So let me show you where you're probably making this exact same mistake in your English conversations. Example number 1, email. Now you'd think with this invention of AI, this mistake would not happen, but you'd be very surprised. So your boss emails you, can you send that report by Friday? And you respond, I will try to get it to you by Friday. What you think you're saying is, I'm being realistic about my workload and managing my responsibilities this week. But what your boss actually hears is, I might miss this deadline, so I'm pre-apologizing just in case I do fail. Instead, what you should write is, yes, I'll have it to you by Friday at 3 p.m. or I'll have it to you by Friday at end of business. Something like that, perfect. The second example that we see this mistake being made in is a client meeting. So for example, the client asks, could your team handle a project this size? And you say, yeah, we will try our best. And what you think you're saying is you're maybe being humble and hardworking, whereas actually the client hears they're not sure that they're big enough for this contract. And instead, what you should say is, absolutely, we've successfully delivered 3 similar scale projects in the past, and we've no doubt we can make it work this time. Just before we move on to example number 3, if you've made it this far in the video, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, as it means that you stay up to date with all of my latest notifications and updates. Now moving on to example number 3, networking. So for example, someone says, could you introduce me to your manager? And you say, oh, I will try to introduce you. What you think you're saying is, I'm being helpful and considerate. But what the other person hears is, I don't have enough influence or power to make that happen. And in networking, this is all about adding value. So you really want to try and place yourself in a position of influence, impact, power, and leverage in the networking bubbles, because that means that you can help a lot of people and other people would be willing to help you as well. This is the perfect definition, I believe, of networking. So instead, what you could say in this situation is, I'd be happy to introduce you, let me send you his email this week, or let me set up an email conversation between us. Moving on to example number 4, a performance review, the dreaded performance review that we all hate. So for example, your manager says, can you take on more leadership responsibilities next year? So you say, I will try. And you feel or you believe that you are showing modesty and willingness to take on these responsibilities. But actually, your manager feels that you cannot do this and you're not really giving them any confidence. So instead, what you should be saying is, I'm ready for that. What specific responsibilities do you have in mind? Or where do you see us 6 months from now or 1 year from now? And example number 5, negotiation. So they ask, can you deliver this by the end of the month? And you say, I'll try to make that timeline work. You believe you are being flexible and accommodating. However, they hear, I'm going to be late, so I'm softening the blow now. Instead, what I would say, or what I would recommend my students to say in this situation would be, yes, the end of the month works for us. I'll keep you updated on weekly progress. Perfect. So did you notice a pattern there from those 5 examples? Every time you say try, you are lowering expectations, signaling doubt about you or your company's abilities, creating an escape route for future failure, and telling people you're just not ready. And I believe that for many of you in your native language, you probably wouldn't want to do this either. So in English, let's not make that bad habit come into play. So the question I'm thinking is, why do English learners make this mistake? Let me explain 3 reasons. First one, cultural translation. In many Asian cultures, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, expressing humility and willingness is a sign of respect and professionalism, right? Claiming that you can do something confidently might come across as being too direct, or perhaps maybe you're not saving face, and maybe a little bit arrogant as well. So you learn the equivalent of I'll try, because perhaps maybe in your culture, that's appropriate, right? For example, in Mandarin Chinese, we might say something like 我试试看, which means I'll try to see. A standard, polite phrase, nothing wrong there. Or even in Japanese, you might say something like やってみます, which means I'll try doing it. Again, shows appropriate humility. However, the problem happens is that when we try to translate back into English, that's where the problem kicks in. And unfortunately, but it's very true that in Western business culture, confidence equals competence. So a lot of companies, they only really want individuals who are confident. That way they're showing competence as well. Reason number 2, linguistic interference. What exactly do we mean by linguistic interference? The word try in English carries different weight than its translations in other languages. In English, try implies uncertainty, lack of confidence, and expectation of potential failure. But in many other languages, the word try just means to attempt without all that negative baggage. You think you're saying, I will attempt this task. Whereas they hear, I probably can't do this, but I'll give it a go. Same words, completely different meaning. And reason number 3, risk aversion. So basically you're afraid of promising something and failing. So you build this linguistic insurance by saying, I will try. So if you do fail, you can say, well, I tried. I gave it a shot and it didn't work out, right? But here's what native speakers hear when you do say this. This person cannot commit. They might be flaky. They lack confidence, and they're not really ready for responsibility. So in Western business English, the ability to commit is more valuable than the humility of hedging. So therefore, this politeness is actually costing you job offers, future opportunities, promotions, professional respect, and other leadership opportunities. And so for me, here's what I changed after I made that mistake many, many years ago. So before, I might say something like, I'll try to finish it by tomorrow, or I'll try my best, or even I'll try to make that work. Instead, now I say things like, yes, I'm confident I can deliver that, or yes, I'll finish that by 5 p.m. on Friday. Or even, I can handle that. So notice something here is that these responses, they are not arrogance, they are just showing confidence and competence. And like I said earlier in this video, for Western business culture, confidence does show trust, good reputation, reliability, accountability. And so you're not bragging, you're communicating competence. All right. Now here's the challenge for you this week. And like with all my videos, I always like to give a little challenge at the end to see, can you put into place the things that you have learned in each and every video? Let's ban the word try from your English conversation this week. Instead of saying try, say things like, I can, I will be able to handle this, or yes. Do this for 7 days, 1 week, just 7 days, and see what happens for you. Notice if there's any change. Let me know in the comments how that works out for you. And a question I wanted to ask you is, have you been making this mistake before? Drop a yes in the comments if you have, because there's no shame or judgment from me here in these videos, because the whole point of these videos is to improve your English and basically just improve yourself overall. So if this video helped you and you felt value in this, make sure you hit that like button, share with somebody else who is learning English, and make sure you are subscribed as well. Thank you so much for watching. Slán go fóill, and see you in the next video.